Good afternoon. Welcome to the House Higher Education Budget Committee. Today, we will be hearing a budget presentation from Fort Hays State University, as well as a hearing on House Bill 2290, which would authorize the affiliation of Northwest Kansas Technical College and North Central Kansas Technical College with Fort Hays State University. However, just a little housekeeping before we start. Wanted to take attendance by any members joining us via WebEx. Trevor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Sawyer and Wesley Winch are in WebEx.
Thank you, Trevor. Representative Sawyer, are you joining us from your Capitol office?
Yes, I am. I'm in my office.
Thank you, Representative. The committee has been sent meeting minutes for February 6th, February 15th, and February 17th. I did make one more revision when I was on the House floor earlier, but basically the revision stated for the meeting on February 6th that I was in attendance by WebEx, but I was in my Capitol office because I did vote during that meeting, so I wanted to denote that for the minutes. And also, I did note Representative Sawyer's attendance via WebEx on February 15th. Those are the two changes to the meeting minutes. So we'll need a motion to approve the meeting minutes. What is the pleasure of the committee? Representative Woodard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the minutes for February 6th through 15th, or I guess the 6th, the 15th, and the 17th of February.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes for February 6th, February 15th, and February 17th. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I just want to note that I will second it. It's in a second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Blue. Thank you. Now it's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes for February 6th, 15th, and February 17th. Is there any discussion or any concerns about the meeting minutes? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes for February 6th, February 15th, and February 17th, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. The meeting minutes are approved. Now I'm excited to welcome to the committee Dr. Tisa Mason, President of Fort Hays State University, will be presenting our committee with a review and recommendations in terms of the fiscal year 23 and 24 recommendations. Thank you.
And there we go. Joining me today is Joe Bain, General Counsel, Jenny Rose, our Legislative Liaison, and Wesley Winch, our Vice President for Administration and Finances on WebEx once again. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to be here today and to talk about some of our key successes and initiatives. Because this is a budget subcommittee, let me start by addressing enrollment. Following 19 consecutive years of growth, Fort Hays State University has experienced a drop in enrollment over the past 3 years. I'm here today to explain why we believe that happened and, even more importantly, what we're doing to reverse the trend. First, our biggest loss in enrollment is on our online students. This fall, 45% of our headcount decline, representing just over 500 students, was in online education. Why? Our online students, mostly over the age of 25, were severely impacted by the pandemic. We heard from our students that their education had to be placed on hold while they managed the challenge of jobs, family, and quarantine. And this was particularly true for those in the health-related fields where work demands just had to take precedence. As the country rebounded post-pandemic, we simply found the online market flooded. And with more competition for online students, Fort Hays lost market share. So what have we done to adapt? First and foremost, we are most grateful for the continued investment that you make in our university and our students that we serve. We have reorganized our marketing department and created a stronger focus specifically on recruitment. This change has led to new technologies and strategies and widening the funnel. I'm happy to report that we're starting to see positive results. This spring, we have about 150 new online students as compared to last year. I believe this puts us on a growth trajectory while we continue to establish even more strategies. Our China program accounted for 43% of our overall headcount enrollment decline, representing just under 500 students. Most importantly, we have no control over our China enrollments. The Ministry of Education did reduce our quota. We knew about this, so we were able to plan for the decline. So how are we adapting? We manage our expense. A decline in our China enrollment just simply means a reduction in net revenue. It does not mean a deficit. Those revenues continue to fuel our affordability mission. Additionally, we continue to build international partnerships. We have active partnerships in 11 countries and 5 more partnerships in development. This fall, we served 129 international students from these non-China partnerships. That does not include our online and on-campus students from international countries. Our on-campus headcount this year accounted for 12% of our overall enrollment decline. And this can be attributed to one of our largest graduating classes, as well as a slight decline in our freshman class, about 22 students. Some successes that we are seeing. The 13-state on-campus regional rate effective this academic year resulted in a 49% increase in undergraduates from the 13 states. Our residence hall contracts were up approximately 100 beds. Our students who live on campus are positioned for greater success than those who live off campus. And our retention rate, approximately 76%, was up about 3 percentage points. In summary, this academic year for Hays State University, a regional university on the Western Plains, is serving close to 13,000 students on campus, online, and across the globe on our partner campuses. These students represent every county in Kansas, every branch of the military, 50 states, 46 countries. Our impact on higher education remains very strong. This brings me to 3 forward-thinking strategies that we are developing. First, our voluntary affiliation initiative, which you'll hear more about in a little bit. Our voluntary affiliation initiative was created to deliver streamlined educational opportunities for our students and at the same time partner with businesses and communities to meet workforce needs and to help grow the economy of Western Kansas. Benefits include, for students, increased access and new pathways to their educational goals, whether it is a certificate, stackable credentials, or an associate, bachelor's, or graduate degree. Also, expanded opportunities for internships so students will be work ready upon completion. For businesses, developing a powerful coalition to focus on workforce needs and providing appropriately trained workers ready to go to work on day one. And for Kansas, encouraging students to seek education and job opportunities and permanence in smaller communities, which are the heart of our rural state. Second, our digital master plan. For Hays State University is concluding work on our digital master plan designed to identify and measure student engagement and success. This data will allow us to shape our future in 3 ways. Improved data-informed teaching strategies, better planning for future technology infrastructure, resources, and adaptations, and better alignment with our master plan for improved efficiencies and effectiveness. And third, expanded professional development and continuing education. We are expanding our infrastructure to increase access to employee professional workforce development programs, certificates, executive education, leadership and strategy coaching, alternative and stackable credentials, credit for prior learning, and services ranging from training and consulting programs. Now let me turn for a moment to our affordability and our business plan. Jorge State University has the most affordable tuition among our peers. During our enrollment decline, we thoughtfully and proactively planned for a downturn while investing in strategies for our future. Our balanced budget was based on projected credit hours, and in fiscal years 20, 21, and 22, we budgeted for anticipated credit reduction, and as a result, in all 3 years, have had a positive budget carry forward. We are on pace to continuing this pattern in fiscal year 2023. We live within our means and use the income that we gain to invest in new strategies for growth. In addition to our affordable tuition, we invest even deeper in the value proposition for our students. Supplementing federal, state, and private aid, we annually provide about $1.5 million in housing scholarships, $2.9 million in foundation scholarships, and $5.8 million in university scholarships. We continue to remain focused on being the best value in education anywhere. Okay. In fact, our affordability is an area where we did include a specific ask in the Kansas Board of Regents approved unified budget request. $6 million in one-time funding to eliminate the student fee for our Student Success Center. They pay about $4, not about exactly $4 per credit hours. And while this particular item didn't make it into the governor's budget recommendation, we remain committed to maintaining our focus on affordability, and we think this effort aligns nicely with the state's interest in student success, one-time money, and debt reduction. I thought you might also be interested in hearing about some investments for which we are very grateful that you have made through Fort Hays State University. A special thank to Representatives Wassinger, Landwehr, and Senator Hildebrand for making changes to licensing requirements, which had temporarily kept our graduates last year from moving forward in their social work career after graduation. A unique focus of our program includes our cohorts in Southwest Kansas, designed for students already established and engaged in their local communities. The cohort model enables students to complete a bachelor's of social work degree without frequent travel or relocation to Hays. To date, 70 students have graduated from our programs in Garden City, Dodge City, Liberal. In Garden City, our cohort program graduates comprise more than half of the total number of licensed social workers in Finney County. Our social work program continues to make gains in both enrollment and graduation rates, and I've included our current practicum placements as a snapshot of how we are serving the state. Thanks to Representative Rajas and this committee, the Kansas Legislature, our Department of Informatics has launched our Cybersecurity Institute and Technology Incubator. This program has 2 objectives. First, leveraging student and faculty expertise to improve the cybersecurity posture for small and medium-sized businesses through student micro-internships, capstone projects, and faculty consulting. Services to businesses and experiences for the student talent pipeline include internships in the areas of web security evaluation, security vulnerability reporting, deploying data privacy and security controls, designing security training, application security evaluation, software testing, data cleanup, development of documentation or compliance protocols. Our students are engaged in paid, meaningful work practicing soft skills as they interact with businesses, while the businesses are receiving essential services for free as they reduce their vulnerability. Our pilot program of 15 micro internships is taking place this semester with the goal of scaling up to 75 micro internships each semester. Phase 2 of our program will focus on the technology incubator. The goal is to develop 1 or 2 businesses initially, with the possibility of those being venture referrals to our small business development center. Ideally, businesses that graduate from an incubator move out into the community and contribute to the overall vitality, diversity, and growth of the area economy. Incubators provide environments that will allow a region to take an active role in growing their own businesses, which will lead to job creation. We were also very excited this past fall with our Robin Banking Institute, which provides classroom training based on real-world observation from banking professionals. Its internship program enhances relationships with bank professionals, leading to job opportunities. With an aging population of bankers and increasing number of job openings, the Institute expedites the training of students to fill banking positions. We were thrilled this fall to announce a new partnership with the Kansas Banking Association to provide seasoned leadership to the Institute. And finally, we had the opportunity this fall to host our first agricultural forum. Representative Ken Rogers, chair of the House Agricultural Committee, Dr. Grady Dixon, dean of the Worth College of Science, Technology, and Mathematics, hosted a day-long forum for approximately 50 ag industry leaders from Western Kansas and 16 state legislators for a series of topic-driven presentations and discussions. Due to this first forum's great success, Fort Hays State University does have plans to make it a recurring event. Even more successes are noted at the end of this testimony. In closing, I'd like to ask for your support in thinking about any legislative restrictions on tuition setting. Over the years, Fort Hays State University has been and will always continue to be an excellent steward of our resources. We have worked very intentionally to build elasticity into our tuition and fee model precisely for times like today. As a cautionary tale, last year, after making more than $2.1 million in reductions for this fiscal year, we planned for a modest increase in tuition. This increase would have made us financially whole, provided a wage increase for our student employees, and at the same time, our students would still have saved more than $1,000 in tuition and fees as compared to students attending any other K-4 institution or even most state comprehensive regional universities throughout the United States, even if those universities did not raise their tuition, and we did. Limiting our ability to operate efficiently by freezing or capping tuition increases by an across-the-board percentage rather than capping at a unified dollar amount puts Fort Hays State University at a very distinct disadvantage. Finally, let me say thank you for your support in helping this amazing university bring affordable, high-quality education to so many students. In the words of Chance Anderson, one of our students who participated in Higher Education Day last week, he said, "I'm so glad I chose Fort Hays State University. Not only am I getting the education I wanted, I'm being taught by professors who care about me as a person." I appreciate your time today for this portion of the presentation. I ask that you consider supporting the governor's budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Dr. Mason. I appreciate your presentation. We will go to our vice chair who has some questions. If you'll stand for some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tisa, I have a couple questions. First, on the handout that we have, inside it says the best value in education anywhere on campus. My question is, it says public universities, K-Bar universities, FHSU. What is the difference between public universities and K-Bar universities?
I think that references to other public institutions in addition to KBOR.
So including Washburn?
I think that the people that pulled this data pulled that from U.S. News and World Report.
Every public university, not just in Kansas.
Hmm.
Okay. The second question on your $6 million request for that the governor unfortunately did not add in her budget. I know that was to offset the bond that the students voted on for Center for Student Success. Is what's left only $6 million, or
There's $10 million left. And so once we pay off the $6 million, we can eliminate that $4 per credit hour fee. That will reduce the university's payment of the bond and save us over the rest of the year nearly $1 million or $100 million. $100 million, did I get that right? $1 million on the university, $2 million on interest.
okay, thank you. And then the final question I have is there are no buildings on the demo for from Fort Hays on the list for K-Bar universities. My question is, did you guys apply and then you were denied, or the deferred maintenance at Fort Hays is not an issue? And what is your secret so maybe other universities can learn how to make sure their buildings are being.
I don't believe that anyone can ever say that deferred maintenance is an issue, because once you have a building, you start after time having deferred maintenance issues. I think that's just part of the capital project. At Fort Hays State University, we have been very intentional, and part of it's been our online and our China growth revenue. Not only has helped us keep our tuition modest, but has given us some flexibility to continue to repurpose and upgrade our buildings. We usually look at that first and do an analysis as to whether it is better to repurpose like we did with Picken Hall, or demolish like we did with Wiest Hall. And so because we have been doing this for many, many years now, we have no buildings that need to be demolished. Anyone that couldn't be purposed, we responsibly, during the right time period, took care of it.
All right, thank you. Tisa, great to see you. And I wore my tiger shirt.
Thank you for that, always.
Thank you, Vice Chair Blue and Dr. Mason. Next question goes to Representative Smith, then we'll go to Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam President, thanks for being here. Congratulations, and your university is a fine one. How many of your students are online students? I can't remember, you said 12 or 13,000 students altogether. How many of them are online?
Right now, there are, this is the fall data, 3,672 on, that's on campus, 6,074 online, and 3,205 in the China partnership.
I have a daughter that teaches, she's a counselor in Wichita. And she came to Fort Hays and got her counseling degree, which allowed her to continue to work. And she came to campus, I can't remember, 2 or 3 or 4 weekends. So I do appreciate that program, that you give the workers a chance to continue their education, but to continue to work also. So I think that's a great program.
Thanks. We've had a lot of success in some of those teaching as well as social work, that cohort model I was talking about. And this is exactly what we want to do. We recognize that when people move out of rural communities, a lot of times they don't go back. And so it's important to keep them there. And that's another reason why we're really excited about the opportunity for this affiliation that we'll talk about shortly.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Mason, thanks for being here. Okay, a couple things. It's been brought up a little bit. Forsyth Library. Kind of give us an update there, and that we understand the state is not really involved in that from our standpoint, but kind of talk about that and how that will probably be one of the new jewels on campus.
Yes, we're very excited. We received $19 million in federal dollars And we have been bringing people together to dream about how we will renovate. That is another decision that we made. We had a long debate. Is this a renovation or is it start from scratch? And we feel like the responsible thing to do for this building is a major renovation. So there is a campus-wide committee, students involved that are doing the dreams, working with the architects and filing all the plans as appropriate for capital planning with the Kansas Board of Regents.
Talk about, Mr. Chairman, talk about your role in Southwest Kansas. And I bring this up. I know that you're doing some things there. I've also read that there are other colleges, maybe that are also starting to have a bigger presence, trying to do some things. And don't necessarily get into the weeds, or I don't want to confuse what we're going to talk about here in a little bit, but just kind of how you're helping to bridge that gap of those that maybe need to stay in Southwest Kansas to work or family situations, and how they can complete their degree.
So Western Kansas is obviously our service area. It's been very important for us to be successful with our location. It has always, through history, included coordination and collaboration so we all can survive and thrive together. So from transition to teaching and programs, as Representative Smith just mentioned, our social work cohort has been successful because, again, we're not only partnering with the community colleges on that, with the gen ed and location, but we have faculty that we hire that live in those communities. So they can show up, they can be there to supervise the social work students. And it's not just about the big university swooping in, it's about being part of that community. And as you can see from the data on our social work growth, it's been phenomenal. For many years, we have worked to increase our Hispanic population because of the Southwest Kansas growth. We've had a higher education outreach center, which has been in Garden City in a strip mall. And we decided that it would be more accessible if we moved that to Garden City Community College. So with a great partnership with Garden City Community College, we now have our outreach center in their library. So we have more traffic and access to the students. We've had a growing Hispanic population on campus and online in Kansas, but we have had loss in those areas during the pandemic as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Representative Fairchild, followed by Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did you say before that the funds that are in the building demolition fund that you aren't able to access for the purpose of maintenance on the existing buildings?
For the demolition for both this fiscal year and what is being asked for the next fiscal year, we will not access them because we don't have need to demolition any buildings.
I guess my point is just that I feel like I don't know why it's broken into different funds like that. I feel like you should be able to access it just to improve existing buildings. And I think that by having it broken up into different funds like that you can access, I think might sometimes result in inefficient spending, and it might make it easier for universities to just be able to access all that money and not having it broken up into different funds.
Appreciate your perspective. We just follow the law.
Representative Wassinger.
Well, I just, mine is more of a comment. I appreciate that you're doing more online classes. I know that my daughter, who is a double tiger, I guess, as well as a wildcat, is getting her doctorate in nursing, and most of it's online. She's now into clinicals, but it's made a huge difference with 2 small children and working at the hospital and going to school at the same time. So just like Representative Smith's daughter, you can juggle all those things and get them done, which is amazing. And I did want to point out that Fort Hays State is one of the top 3 employers in Ellis County. So Fort Hays State is vital to our economy. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Any questions from online? Another question from Representative Smith.
Just a comment. we have at Pittsburgh, we have gotten an awful lot of good football players, and it's harder to get them out with Coach Brown there. So, just the thought. Because we have gotten some really good ones. So thank you.
Indeed you have, and we love Coach Brown.
If there's no other questions, I'd just like to thank Dr. Mason for your testimony for the budget. And we'll certainly follow up, and I encourage committee members, if you have any outstanding questions after you leave today, I know Dr. Mason's team is glad to answer those questions and provide additional information. So thank you very much. And I guess I could keep you there at the podium, because next on our agenda is a hearing on House Bill 2290. Yeah, but I need to have the reviser go first. So you can take a short break, maybe five minutes or so. So thank you to my ranking member for keeping me on track. Obviously, without my vice chair and my ranking, who knows what would happen. So I'd like to welcome Jill Walters, a reviser, to do an overview of House Bill 2290.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. You should have my bill brief in your folder, as well as the bill for you to refer to 2290. What this bill does is authorizes the affiliation of Northwest Kansas Technical College and North Central Kansas Technical College with Fort Hays State University. So it allows an affiliation. You might remember in 2017, Wichita State and Wichita Area Technical College did the same thing. And so this is patterned after that. It's not exact. So I do want to tell you that, but it's very similar and legally sound in those areas. So what would happen is they could be affiliated. The institutions would be designated as Fort Hays State University Northwest Kansas Technical College and Fort Hays State University North Central Kansas Technical College, and they would be governed by and operated as technical colleges within Fort Hays State Universities. The current governing bodies of the tech colleges would become industrial or regional advisory boards to the president of Fort Hays State University for each technical college, and all the powers and duties established in the governing body of those technical colleges by law would be transferred to Fort Hays State, subject to the rules and supervision of the Board of Regents. The president of the Fort Hays would appoint the members of the industry and regional advisory boards, and members of the advisory boards would specifically represent industry sectors and regions that correspond to the programs offered by the technical colleges. The technical colleges would offer programs approved by Fort Hays, including credential and a degree programs that the tech colleges are authorized by law to award. And the industry or regional advisory board would review the programs with the president and senior leadership of Fort Hays and the technical colleges to ensure that the programs are aligned with current and emerging needs of the industry and the community. For an educated and trained workforce, the advisory board would provide input relating to changes in industry sectors or regions that affect any academic programs that are offered. And then they would perform any operational responsibilities or duties specified in the agreement or requested by the president of Fort Hays State University. The bill provides specifically that nothing would affect or alter any admission requirements applicable to the respective educational institutions, and each affiliated institution would continue to be subject to any applicable admission requirements imposed by law. And it also specifically says that Fort Hays shall not admit degree-seeking first-time freshmen or transfer students who don't meet the applicable and qualified admission standards. So it just clarifies that everybody would really be following what is currently in law with this affiliation. The newly affiliated technical colleges would continue to be technical colleges and would be eligible for funding in the amounts that they are currently eligible to be qualify for. So nothing would change in regard to their funding. The bill further contains the typical language, which clarifies that the newly affiliated tech colleges are technical colleges referred to in statutes and contracts and other documents, and no lawsuit or any other judicial proceeding that is ongoing or could be filed against the technical college would not abate for this reasons of this affiliation. The formal affiliation agreement between the colleges and Fort Hays shall include provisions relating to the manner and terms where faculty, employees, and students would be transferred to Fort Hays. And then such terms in this affiliation agreement would need to specifically state the employment and other personnel matters. It would all be subject to approval of the Board of Regents, and then all personnel of Northwest Tech and North Central Tech may become employees of Fort Hays State University, but it would be in accordance with the needs of Fort Hays State University. So Fort Hays would need to look at that and then determine if that employee still is needed to continue the function of the colleges, the technical colleges. The affiliation would be effective upon approval of the formal agreement that is consistent with the provisions of the bill by the Board of Regents and the governing bodies of the technical colleges. And then finally, so the agreement would have to be approved by those. And then it also has to be approved by the Higher Learning Commission of North Central Association of Colleges and Schools. They also have to approve the affiliation. And the bill specifically clarifies that if Northwest, I'm just making this example, if Northwest Kansas would vote, if their technical college governing board would vote to affiliate with Fort Hays, but North Central did not, the Northwest could still go through, and vice versa. If North Central voted yes, but Northwest voted no, that they could still join if the governing board was in agreement with affiliation. One doesn't stop. They're not a package deal, I guess is how I could say it. And then sections 2 through 5 of the bill, just making forming amendments throughout the statutes when we talk about that technical college, that it means this technical college that will now be called Fort Hays State University, Northwest Kansas and North Central Kansas technical colleges. And then the bill would become effective on the publication in the statute book. And I'd be pleased to stand for any questions if the chair authorizes that.
Yes, any questions for the reviser? Ranking Member Woodard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Jill, for this. This is more a process question generally, not just this bill, but if two technical colleges wanted to affiliate, do they have to come before the legislature?
Come together, I believe that is correct, sir.
Colleges?
I think they would have to come before the legislature too.
I know there was a bill last year, I think, that was giving the authority of affiliation over to the Board of Regents. So it just seems like a lengthy process that every time that this wants to happen, they come through us and we have to pass a law to do it. So just a general comment. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you. Any other questions for the reviser? If not, thank you for the overview of HB 2290. Next, I'd like to welcome back to the podium Dr. Tisa Mason, President of Fort Hays State University. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. And joining me will be my colleagues, Ben Shears and President Eric Burks. President, and President. It's a triple crown today. Chair Howe and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this request to better serve our students, our communities, and our businesses through a voluntary affiliation model designed to closer align our three institutions as we explore new educational delivery models. Together, Presidents Burks, Shears, and I have developed a shared vision from our already established strong common missions and focused on how we can best provide opportunities for the communities that we serve. Our true North goals are and remain business and community and student success. We do great work in meeting these goals, but we believe our current challenges call for new thinking. In fact, I'd like to compliment Presidents Burks and Shears for their foresight in pursuing this initiative to drive change.
Thank you. My name's Eric Burks. I'm the president at North Central Kansas Technical College. And I might just interject this real quick too, that North Central Kansas Technical College has been in an affiliation, a looser affiliation than what we're proposing here for 13 or 14 years. So we have a strong history of working together with the university. Of course, we have a campus in Beloit, Kansas, but also in Hayes. And so this has been a natural fit. It's worked very well, and we look forward to deepening that partnership through this proposed affiliation. And you might ask, well, why? Why now? Why are we doing this? Look at rural Kansas. Look at what's happening in our area of the state. We're under significant demographic and economic pressures that require innovative strategies in order to make changes that are going to affect positively what's going on. The population decline is real, 1.6% between the last two, between 2010 and 2020 with the census, while the rest of the state or other parts of the state grew. We're shrinking. That's particularly acute with the number of young people that are going to college that would be coming to our schools. We expect by 2029 there to be a 15% decline in that number. Rural populations are shrinking. 33% decline in rural population is what they're forecasting by 2064. So as you look at all of these forces that are coming at us, you know, we're not each other's worst adversary. These forces are what we need to work against, and we need to lock arms in order to take these on together. And the Census Bureau also predicts 25% of the state's population will be 60 or older by 2030. So for our communities to thrive, we need every individual to have access. We need every individual to have the opportunity to fully develop their talents and skills. We must forge stronger partnerships with our business partners. That's going to be a key component to what we're doing here, and to allow them to help shape our programs and really make sure that we're supporting their needs. And we also need to expand our roles as being active in our communities. And we really feel like, again, that the three of us individually are doing this well. I mean, I don't think that we're falling down on this, but I think we can do much better and be much stronger if the three of us are working together. And so that's why we have designed this affiliation framework to be upheld by those three things: of supporting the communities, our students, and expanding our role as contributors. I think Dr. Mason is next.
Where Hayes State University has and will continue to have a relentless focus on serving rural communities, often in partnership with community colleges. Our collective work with Transition to Teaching, RN to BSN, Speech Pathology, and the Southwest Social Work Cohort Program are just a few examples of how we invest in communities locally. We know that the demographic situation will only get worse, and there are not enough people to keep up with the workforce and the community needs. This proposed voluntary affiliation is firmly rooted in the Kansas Board of Regents strategic plan, offering affordability for families, strategic partnerships with business, and a promise of increased community vitality. President Shears.
Good afternoon. Ben Shears from Northwest Tech in Goodland, Kansas. Time traveled. We're out in Mountain Time Zone, so time traveled to be here with you this week. So appreciate the time to talk about this affiliation. While this initiative is boldly focused on today's challenges, affiliations and mergers in Kansas higher education are not new. They're not new concepts. And as often occurred in the past, involve significantly heavy legislative engagement in this process. So kind of looking back a little bit, I was a history major in college, so I always loved these kinds of pieces. When you look back at about the 1980s or so, there were nearly twice the number of technical colleges, technical schools, as they were called at that time, in the state of Kansas as there are today. Over the following 3 decades, 5 area vocational technical schools were merged into local community colleges that were geographically nearby. In December of 2006, in response to a growing sense that more was needed to be done to increase and support technical education, the Kansas Technical College and Vocational School Commission heard numerous proposals, including notably a recommendation that remaining technical schools, this is before we were accredited, that remaining technical schools in colleges merge or affiliate with community colleges or universities. So this concept has been around for a while. Ultimately, this commission paved the way for the creation of the Technical Education Authority, which has been a great advocate for technical education in the state of Kansas since its inception in about 2008. And so at that point in time, the last plans were made for remaining independent technical schools to either merge, affiliate, or seek independent accreditation. So as of today, all but the 7 remaining technical schools, which are now technical colleges, have merged with nearby community colleges. Of the 7 that still remain around the state, 2 were recently merged or affiliated with the university, Washburn University and Washburn Tech, which is more of a merger type of a structure, and WSU and what was Wichita Area Technical College, now WSU Tech, in an affiliation that, again, from the legislative language, as was mentioned earlier, this is patterned after. What we're proposing is a natural progression of a process of integrating technical colleges with regional partners that's actually been going on in the state of Kansas for decades, a piece at a time. The difference in recent years is that our institution and a few before us are working to voluntarily affiliate to meet our goals. And the word voluntary is significant in here because all 3 of us are coming to the table from a position of strength, and we're interested in doing this to see what this could drive. I always like to say when we talk about this affiliation that I'd rather be at a destination wedding than a shotgun marriage. So we want to be in the driver's seat on this thing and being able to drive this initiative forward collectively and voluntarily. So thank you.
We're going to go over the student, community, and business success again because we think it's really important. So thank you for your patience. For students, the voluntary affiliation increases access to program offerings at more locations, pathways to achieve educational goals from ranging from the simple credit hours to a certificate through to a graduate degree, low tuition, seamless transfer, experiential learning opportunities, and expanded career network that allows students to make essential professional connections, and very important in my opinion, integrated professional advising to help students navigate an expanded range of choices and opportunities, ultimately leading to higher completion rates that lead to jobs.
So for our employers, we really want to make sure that we are again, creating more experiential learning opportunities so that our students can go out to those businesses and work in those businesses, test drive each other a little bit, make sure that it's a good fit, and look at how we can forge partnerships with those businesses. We want to obviously allow them, and we already have advisory committees that do help shape our programs, but looking at that now, not just at a 1 or 2 year certificate program, but how do we shape those programs so that they flow all the way through, even to an advanced degree? So what would that look like? Expanding access for employee and professional workforce development. I know we're excited about that even at our own institution. For a lot of our instructors, as you might imagine, come from industry. Believe it or not, there's not a master's program out there for plumbing. There's a master's plumber, but there's not a program. And so they know their trade very well, but we want them to learn how to be good educators also. And we feel there'll be a lot of professional development here for that, and also in other areas for the businesses in our community. I know in Beloit the other day, the Banking Institute was already working through and talking to all of our area banks to see how we might work together through this partnership and help them with any workforce needs that they have or additional training needs that they have. So again, just an example already before this even passes of how we're working together. We want to access and engage prospective employees so that they can meet these students early. So again, we can make sure that they've got those micro internship, apprenticeship opportunities, and those earn as you learn. I think those are beneficial not just for the students, but obviously for the businesses too. I think everyone wins. And we want to create that reliable employment pipeline. We love our area of the state. Western Kansas, North Central Kansas is a beautiful place to raise a family, to be, but it is sometimes difficult to convince other people to come to that area if they haven't been there before. And so the more we can help build those pipelines that exist and people already are familiar with where they're at and they like it, we just need them to stay there and have that opportunity. So that's part of this as well.
For communities, the voluntary affiliation grows more prosperous businesses and communities by creating stronger educational institutions that better serve the essential roles as contributors to the overall health and viability of their local communities and regions. By expanding access to expertise and services provided by established programs, similar to the Banking Institute that was just talked about, cybersecurity initiatives, the Kansas Small Business Development Center, enhancing tactical initiatives coordinated across the three institutions to bolster resources, plans, and attraction of business, keeping graduates local so that they can contribute to the vitality of their communities through the careers that they build, that the goods and services they buy, and through making social, civic, and economic contributions. Our rural communities are experiencing population and job loss. This is no surprise to anybody. You know, we look at our service area. The example I like to provide is out in our service area, Northwest Kansas. We got about 14 counties out there. And when we look at K-12 populations 30 years ago compared to what they are today, there's about 3,600 students fewer in K-12 than there was 30 years ago. Population of Goodland is around 3,500. So it's the equivalent of taking an entire community off the map. So something has to change. We've got to think differently. We've got to operate differently. And we've got to take a more strategic approach to making some things happen in the future. And so I think this initiative really is going to be an important piece of kind of forging a future within our area. And importantly, again, by acting now, we're coming at it from a position of strength. None of our three institutions are sitting in financial destitute. You know, we're not financially destitute. That's a piece that you tend to see with affiliations and mergers elsewhere around the country. It's usually when you have a partner that's up against a wall and they're financially strapped, then that's when these kinds of processes tend to come to the table. None of us are sitting in that situation. We're looking at this for a different solution for our area. And as we've talked in the past, do I think this is a silver bullet for fixing population decline and business growth in our region? No. But is it a step in the right direction? Absolutely. And I think it's something that's going to be, there's so many different things that we're starting to kind of daydream a little bit. And it's going to take a lot of involvement from faculty, staff, employees, community, business, and industry. And we're already starting to see that happen just in the conversation space now. So it's really pretty exciting, I think, for us going forward. So I'll hand it back to Dr. Mays.
This is planned to be a voluntary affiliation, not a merger. A merger would likely involve legally dissolving the partner institutions and transferring all the assets and the liabilities to the lead institution. So again, affiliation, not a merger. The voluntary affiliation involves the alignment of operations and integrated academic programs. Under our affiliation, each institution will retain its federal ID, independent accreditation, and all three presidents remain in their roles. Funding streams remain separate and intact. They will not change as a result of our voluntary affiliation. The two technical college presidents will report to the Fort Hays president under the authority of the Kansas Board of Regents. We'll unify our marketing under the Fort Hays brand, and the NJCAA athletics will continue at Northwest Tech. Operationally, should the voluntary affiliation be approved, based on the needs of the communities we serve, we have identified a number of academic and administrative service pilots, which we will test proof of concept and from which best practices will be extracted before moving forward with full implementation. Furthermore, each of the implementation teams will include stakeholders from businesses, our communities, and across our institutions. Our first academic pilots will focus on agriculture, construction, and nursing. Our first administrative pilots will focus on admissions and marketing, advising for these three majors, general education and transfer process, registrar functions, so we'll need to create a simplified crosswalk between institutions for cross-institutional transcript exchange, procurement, and an IT study group to begin to think about data governance and identify low-hanging fruit for operational alignment. We have set up a basic structure. The campus communities, those closest to the work, will determine how to reach those goals. Our process began with an idea and a conversation. It evolved by securing a grant and a consultant to help us work through the process of creating a shared vision, a framework, and draft legislation. We then shared the concept in the documents with our campuses and our boards. All three boards, Northwest Tech, NCK Tech, and the Kansas Board of Regents, voted unanimously in support of moving forward with a voluntary affiliation. And now it must pass the legislative process in the form of HB 2290. If signed into law, we will then seek authorization from our accrediting body, the Higher Learning Commission, and finally ratification by the governing boards of all three institutions. As this process unfolds over the next several months, we've invited input from our internal and our external constituents to share their ideas and suggestions to build out our existing framework. Their feedback will be crucial to help shape the resulting arrangement into something that will serve our communities and our students well for years to come. So today, we respectfully ask for your support. We appreciate your time and are happy to answer questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Dr. Mason. Before we go on with more proponent testimony, I just wanted to remind the committee that there is written only proponent testimony, which is on the S drive as well as made available on the table over here to the public. Next, for in-person proponent testimony, we have Cherie Utash from WSU Workforce Development. Cherie, welcome to the committee. And I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Sherry. That's okay.
Darn it.
It's all right.
Sherry.
Dad did that on purpose.
Sherry, welcome to the committee.
Thank you so much, Chairman, and the committee for the opportunity to be here. I'm Sherry Utash. I serve as the president of WSU Tech and the vice president of workforce development at Wichita State University. And I'm here today on behalf of the Kansas Technical College Association. We are very pleased to offer our support and endorsement from the Kansas Technical Colleges for House Bill 2290, which would allow two of our members to affiliate with Fort Hays State University. Having had experience with affiliation between Wichita State University and WSU Tech, I can tell you that partnerships like this bring real benefits to the state of Kansas and the affiliating institutions. In our case, our affiliation is 3.5 years old, and it has improved and enhanced synergies of co-enrollment, technical education completion, job placement, and creating educational pathways towards higher education once they leave the 2-year degree. It's also really strengthened our ability to respond to workforce and economic development as we can provide education and training from GED to PhD under our affiliation. We also have found interinstitutional benefits in various areas like supplies, contractual services, and more. It is our belief that when institutions take the lead to develop a partnership like this one, that it is in the best interest of Kansas to support and foster their efforts. The institutions bringing this proposal forward have really carefully evaluated the combination of regional needs, demographic, and regional economic development in their decision making. It is also worth noting that this bill shows that its enactment would have a negligible fiscal effect on the state general fund. In fact, the proposed affiliation has the potential over time to generate savings for the university and each technical college in the long term by allowing those institutions to create synergies through collaboration to meet workforce development needs, to strengthen rural Kansas communities, and facilitate student access and success. So on behalf of the Kansas Technical Colleges Association, we would ask you to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry, for your testimony, and just would like staff to make sure we record that Sherry's testimony is on behalf of the Kansas Technical College Association. Next, I'd like to welcome to the podium Dr. Blake Flanders, President of the Kansas Board of Regents. Welcome to the committee, Dr. Flanders.
Thank you, Chair Howe, Vice Chair Blue, and Ranking Member Woodard. To be supportive today, the board supports HB 2290, and almost everything I was going to say has already been said, so I'm not going to repeat that. But I do want to just take a moment to thank President Shears, President Burke, and certainly President Mason, not only for having this vision, but also the leadership that it requires to move this forward. Now, if it were a technical college merging with a community college, we would not need to go to the legislature. I believe that is KSA 17-1701 and 1702. I think the revisor would have that has already been permissive. So we don't have permissive affiliation or mergers when a technical college or a community college merges or affiliates with a university. And so the board has entertained bringing forward permissive legislation. We couldn't get agreement on that. And so we're bringing them one at a time, or in this case, two at a time. Again, as President Scheer said, we've had a number of mergers. The interesting thing on mergers and affiliations, and this is an affiliation, we've never had an unsuccessful one. Not one. I mean, it's happened in Hutchinson, thank you, Hutchinson, Coffeyville, Atchison, Liberal, Dodge City. It's happened all over across Kansas, Wichita, Topeka. Wichita's up 3,000 students since that affiliation occurred. Topeka, since that affiliation, has doubled in terms of Washburn Institute of Technology. So here's kind of what I expect. I expect that we're going to have more talent in our rural communities as a result of this. I expect there's going to be greater articulation, and you're going to have more individuals who have entered the trades decide, I'm going to get extra education at Fort Hays State University. So the population of Hays might go up a little. I might go to Hays and get a small business certificate. Hays has a core competency of working closely with the SBDC. And so maybe we'll have someone who goes through a welding program or an HVAC program that decides, I'm going to work in this industry for a year, and then I'm going to go to Fort Hays smoothly, easily, and I'm going to access that education to start my own business. That'll be a good thing. They can then hire people. I will tell you that when we started here developing vocational technical schools, and that would have been following the federal act. So it happened, I think Kansas passed their act in 1964. At that time, many thought, not everybody, they were wrong, but many thought vocational education's a dead end. You go, you get trained, but then you can't go any higher. You're just going to be in that occupation. And that's never actually been true, and it's certainly not true today. I really expect this to help grow communities. It's in line with the Kansas Board of Regents strategic plan. And again, I'm happy to be here to support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Flanders, for your testimony. Would the revisor want to comment or at least confirm that follow-up?
Yes, if the committee would accept my apology. I had my fellow revisors who work in higher ed look it up. And so just for the record, Article 13 of Chapter 71 allow community colleges to consolidate if or associate with one another if it's approved by KBOR and a special election. So in community colleges, which have property tax authority, the community has to have a special election to approve it. And then as Dr. President Flanders said, that Article 17 of Chapter 71 authorizes community colleges to consolidate with area tech schools.
Thank you very much. Again, I want to remind the committee that we do have written only proponent testimony from the Hays Chamber of Commerce, Sarah Wassinger, the mayor of the city of Hays, Mason Reuter, the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, Eric Stafford, and a resident of Hays and a business person in Hays, Mark Hess. So please make sure you had that as well. I just wanted to, comment and commend all of the stakeholders involved for your vision and for your voluntary efforts to bring this together. the committee probably is aware that there is not any opponent testimony before us. I haven't nothing's been presented to the committee. I haven't heard any opposing concerns. And given our workload next week with additional budget hearings and a short time frame in which we have to report out our budget recommendations, I would entertain a, oh yeah. Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Blue. What I was going to finish saying, I'll say in a few more minutes, but the committee probably needs to ask any questions that are outstanding because I don't want to overlook that important part of our legislative process. So Representative Fairchild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just for anyone, but I was just wondering if someone could go into more detail about the differences between an affiliation and a merger.
Again, we have two kind of models of that in our state already with Washburn and Washburn Tech, which would be more of the merger style. So you're going to have more of a combination of assets. It all falls under one. They're all one entity together. And an affiliation is where we will remain separate entities. We'll have our own federal tax identification number. We'll have our own accreditation process, but we will combine and partner our efforts and fall under the Fort Hays umbrella and under the governance there, but still have individual autonomy.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Growing up in Atchison, we had a VOTEC, and some of the teachers were journeymen and not necessarily teachers. And, you know, they did some training, but the tech schools, are we getting journeymen, or are we getting people with 2-year degrees to teach, or who is qualified to teach in these tech schools?
So, good question. So one of the beauties of higher education today, and sometimes some of the challenging aspects of this as well, we all report to the Higher Learning Commission, and the HLC is really the entity that drives teaching credentials. And so back in the day, when we were tech schools, you're correct. We could have individuals that came straight out of industry directly into the classroom, potentially no teaching experience outside of teaching how they were taught 20 years before they went into industry. And so the change that has happened over time is that technical faculty, so for example, if I've got we just hired a new plumbing instructor for a program on campus, they're required to, at minimum, have a bachelor's degree now. And so they need to teach one level above the instruction that they're providing. So in our case, we do technical certificates and associate degrees. So our instructors need to be at a baccalaureate level. So oftentimes what happens for technical colleges in the state of Kansas is we hire individuals from industry to come in. Oftentimes they don't have that instruction. So most of the time they're paired up with a seasoned instructor on campus while they're going through their degree to be able to get their bachelor's degree. Oftentimes it happens within, generally it's within education, technology, or technical education instruction degrees. So, and a lot of professional development that goes along there. So they do get that bachelor's degree.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Mason, I think this would be for you. And I appreciate you explaining the difference between the affiliation, the merger, and the acquisition. Because I was going to ask, okay, who gets all the assets, but you took care of that. The question comes in, okay, what's the budget process look like if you're all going to remain kind of individual, but what's that going to look like?
So we will be communicating regularly, and as I understand, actually, Wichita Tech could, Sherry could probably answer this better. The president approves the budgets, but we still have our own budget processes. It rolls up. We would approve, and then our budget would go, as it usually does, to the Kansas Board of Regents. But we work well together. We work collectively, and we will make sure that we all stay healthy. Would you correct anything that I said?
I think that's the way we work it. We work with our industry board that advises both Dr. Muma and myself on behalf of the college, and they have input into that. It's presented to Dr. Muma. He signs off, then it goes to the Board of Regents, but it's outside of the university's Board of Regents ask. So there's still quite a bit of local control there.
And just important to that, as we've said throughout testimony, funding streams remain separate. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have about 3 questions, I think. I hope I don't overstep my bounds, but, you know, it may have been answered. Appointing members of the industry regional advisory boards, probably Dr. Mason, this is for you. The local autonomy is still going to be there, right? I assume that the other 2 presidents will make recommendations, just like normal. Against that local control remains, that you can't put 7 people from Hayes on the what. You'll make sure that there's that local control still there.
I think one of the things that's really important to understand, and a lot of people have asked us, is this an enrollment initiative? And sure, we think that we will grow our enrollment. I think that's important, but it's not our why. Our why is the success of our students, our communities, and our businesses. And so if we're not respecting those communities and those nuances as we appoint those boards and navigate collectively together with a shared vision of how we strengthen our communities, then we're failing at what we've set out to do.
Probably this is also for you. Success is kind of, I'm going to leap off from that. I know when we had other discussions about technical colleges, professional advising, getting into those schools, helping those youngsters, determining. So how would that work? And maybe you could address that too from a Wichita Tech standpoint, as we look maybe at professional advisors, how that would spill over, whether, getting into those high schools or others to work on that technical maybe line that would spill over into the 4-year programs available at Fort Hayes. Have you got that far into it yet?
So that'll be all the logistical work being done by these pilots that are going to do proof of concept. So one of the reasons in the administrative, so we have the 3 majors: nursing, construction, ag. Advisors, professional advisors working in those areas will be developing how do we have the acumen and the understanding of all of the institutions so that we can serve all of the students collectively. They have to have the integrated professional knowledge to do that. So that's part of the vision. But they need to come together and make those recommendations and the plans. It's very dangerous for a president to try and do some of that work. They have the knowledge.
Mr. Chair, if I is that how it's working in Wichita Tech somewhat, or whoever wants to just kind of now 3 years in, how that's developed?
So we work a lot together on that, creating those pathways, and we've built a lot of baccalaureate degrees that accept our Associate of Applied Sciences that we didn't have 3.5 years ago, and we're very well aware of that. And we work in our high schools together, and we recruit into and career exploration in middle school together. So just a really, as our affiliation continues to evolve, we are really continuing to build indirect benefits that we could have never guessed in the beginning.
Chairman, one more quick. Yes, go ahead.
So one of the things that we've talked a little bit about in this case is looking at this from 2-year to 4-year. But a big piece of the conversation we've also talked about is what does it look like when you have 4-year to 2-year? So one of the things that we see, every college and university across the state of Kansas has students that don't make it to the finish line. What do we do with those students? What do we do with those kids? And so some of the work that we're going to be doing, hopefully early on as part of this advising process, is if we have a student that's at the university side of things, maybe they're one of our kids, they're a wires and pliers kid, and they don't do well in a 5x5 kind of a classroom or a structure in a kind of a typical academia. How do we take that student that may be struggling in a university environment, get them into one of the 2 technical college institutions, get them into an employable skill, and keep them in the Kansas workforce? So I wanted to make that delineation that we're also looking at this from an advising standpoint both ways.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be quick. And maybe for Dr. Flanders, and I may be stepping out here, but looking at the situation with the proximity of Northwest Tech, so close to the Colorado border. I know, or President Shears, I mean, it's kind of a unique situation. Even though we're crossing the state boundaries, but so many of those students come there. I mean, I'm looking at funding. Am I overstepping here trying to figure out how, some of the other 4 institutions that have, offered different things and that could almost mess up funding. And I don't want to open a can of worms this year, but I'm just trying to look down the road of how, because I think of the uniqueness is because of how close it is to another state.
So we have a mechanism in place to siphon off talent from Colorado. And I guess that's not or recruit students from Colorado. And so here's how we're going to do it. If a student, so right now the residency requirements for a technical college, if a student, they have to move here, but it's then they become eligible for state funding once they move here. And so that's going to continue because these are affiliated technical colleges. They're not going to fall under the residency requirements of a university. And I think it's an important strategy. We've got to start, this is just what I hear. Businesses are saying we don't have enough talent. And so how do we, and Colorado has a higher population density. So how do we get to that front range, provide this, Colorado's going to be just fine, by the way, but provide this option to those individuals so they can come here to Kansas, probably ultimately end up at Fort Hays State University, maybe with a baccalaureate degree someday.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was wondering, how did this all start? Where did you all come to this? It's just, I know that we were very fortunate as Western Kansas legislators to know about it early on. And I think we were all really excited and we had different questions, but I would like to know how you did that if it's possible. Thank you.
I think we had some early conversations with Northwest Tech. President Burks talked a little bit about the Gateway program. We've been working very closely. We have monthly lunches generally to figure out, especially with their Hays campus. And when I first came back as president, Eric said, I'm not really interested in this affiliation merger thing right now, but if Ben ever talks to you, I want to be at the table. And so Ben came to talk to me. And so we called Eric and we actually had a study group. We read a book on higher educations and affiliations, mergers, and acquisitions. We listened to a podcast. And in that podcast, some phenomenal information on what was going on. One of the gentlemen was from a nonprofit called Sea Change. And we thought, we really want to know how to do this. How do we get started? We talked to Sherry a lot and Rick. And so we just Googled the podcast guy, called him, found him in Jiffy Lube, and walked away ultimately with a $100,000 grant to start our study and to hire a consultant in higher education that's worked with the system in Maine and Vermont and knows a lot of models, brought us together with people in the accreditation business and really challenged our vision and our why to make sure we were grounded in it. And then from there, as it developed, we began to share the vision with other people.
Well, I appreciate the forward thinking of all three of you presidents. I'm actually blown away. I know that you're going to have bumps along the way and you'll be smoothing things over, but I'm just very excited that we're doing this in Western Kansas and making things happen for our businesses, such as Hess Services, which is one of the largest employers as well. So thank you. I appreciate it. It's fun to hear how it all started.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Okay, thank you for all of the proponent testimony. Again, there were not any opponent testimony that was submitted or in person. I will acknowledge House Rule 1308. It says a committee shall not take action to report a bill out of committee on the same day that the committee holds a hearing on the bill unless the committee approves such action by a 2/3 vote. Given the fact that we haven't had any opponent testimony, I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules?
Mr. Chair, I move that we suspend the 24-hour rule.
It's been moved and seconded. It's been moved by Vice Chair Blue and seconded by Ranking Member Woodard to suspend the Rule 1308 for the purpose of working House Bill 2290. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Got my 3 times in. Okay. If not, we will proceed to vote on suspending the rules for House Bill to work House Bill 2290. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. The rules 1308 has been suspended so we can work House Bill 2290. Committee, what is the will of the committee?
Mr. Chair, I move that we pass out House Bill 2290 favorably for passage.
It's been moved by Vice Chair Blue that House Bill 2290 be passed favorably. It's been seconded by Representative Rajes. Is there any discussion? Are there any amendments? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of favorable passage of House Bill 2290, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. HB 2290 is voted out of committee. Now we'll move to announcements. I will let the committee know that we do not have any more meetings scheduled for this week, as we'll be on the floor attending to business there. Next week, we're not in session on Monday or Tuesday. On Wednesday, March 1st, we are scheduled to hear a budget presentation from Emporia State University. On March the 2nd, we've confirmed a presentation by the Kansas Development Finance Authority. They oversee the indebtedness by all of our public agencies, in this case, our universities. And after this meeting, I'll be working with KLRD to finalize what day we will, and my vice chair and ranking member, what day we will begin our deliberations on the budget. So are there any other announcements? If not, that concludes today's Higher Education Budget Committee meeting. Thank you.